Lovely to see
Hi,
you. Thank you
morning.
so much for spending some time with us.
All right,
Could you
pleasure.
just tell me a little bit about you and your business, what it's called, and so on?
Great, fine. Just a very brief plotted history about me. Born and bred in Hull, came to Sheffield in 1994. Studied at Sheffield Hallam. I got a placement year working for some financial advisors in '97, and that's where I saw the sort of the light, so to speak. I mean, it was very commission driven, high earnings, and that as a student was the attraction initially. Post '97, I then engineered a path to allow me to get the qualifications while being paid. So I worked at Aviva initially in the call centre, then training, coaching people. Then moved across to Aviva Life and Pension as a broker consultant. Looked after a couple of dormant, well, pretty poor accounts, and they weren't producing for Aviva. And really turned them into profitable entities for Aviva at the time. I think they were called Norwich Union at the time. So one was Edward Jones, and the one prior to that was Bradford and Bingley. So myself and my colleague turned them into profitable accounts, profitable for Aviva. And then cutting a long story short, 2004, one of the main guys of Edward Jones in the UK took me for lunch and openly asked, would you like to join us? And as a broker consultant, becoming an advisor was the holy grail. So I was like, well, yeah, it'd be foolish not to. Put me through the training. And the Edward Jones business model, some of you might not know, is by door knocking. So between 2004 and 2006, I was trained up to knock on doors, open conversations with complete strangers. And it was great fun. So in the period of 2 years, built a client bank of around 80, 90 people. Still remember my first ever sale. It took me 6 weeks to get it. And it was £1,000 into a Newton higher income ISA. And I earned £16. And I still see the chap that bought from me. I've never approached him to thank him for believing in me, because that was the first person that ever bought from me. So you have all this theory up till then, but only until someone actually buys from you, you think, bloody hell, this works. Pardon my French. So left Edward Jones. At the time, there was worries from my partner at the time about the basic salary drying up and the commission taking over and the security of income. So then got approached by a recruitment consultant, went to work for RBS Private, NatWest Private Banking, which was great fun initially, and then absolutely detested it. And then being minute managed, everything else. So having complete autonomy at Edward Jones to an extent, working in an environment which was being minute managed, I thought, you know what, I've had enough. So I resigned from that job without a job to go to in 2007, late 2006, early 2007. And then just by chance, I called a friend who's a mortgage broker, and he'd become part of a business that was a young, growing business, and they wanted to set up an IFA arm. So I set up the IFA arm for the business. So from 07 to 09, that went great guns in Sheffield. We employed about 30 to 40 people in total, 4 or 5 advisors and support staff, and then the rest were mortgage brokers, and they had an international property arm as well. We know what happened around 2009, 2010, where the mortgage market collapsed because of the various things that happened. So I was the second person out the door, being the IFA director and owning shares in the business. I was like, I can't run the business the way that you want to run it, and that's high commission, slightly sort of, I don't know, not ethical in my opinion. So Blue Wealth was born in '09. So a brief past history to where we got to. And I set up the firm in '09, and we started off as being a fee-based business in '09. So, which was totally alien to the majority of financial planners out there. Don't get me wrong, there were some great businesses that were fee-only, fee-based then, but for a lot of advisors, charging fees was total unknown. The fees were generated, the money was generated by commission, and only if you sold a product. So we did that. I then was courted by a gentleman called Paul Armson for a while, courted in the financial planning sense as opposed to anything else. And then I looked into the software that I use, Prestwood Truth. And then, I think it was 2011, I eventually committed to becoming a user of Truth, a client of Prestwood, and never looked back, and totally transformed the business, totally transformed the way we do things, and really was a real differentiator for a long, long time. So not only were we fee-based, stroke fee only eventually, the cash flow modelling was a differentiator and really allowed us to open up much, much deeper conversations with clients, business owners mainly, around financial planning. So rather than be selling a product, we were providing holistic planning and hypothetical scenarios, the what if scenarios, all these things that really genuinely blew these people away, because that was proper guidance, planning, and subsequent advice off the back of it.
Excellent. So your business has been going just over 10 years then?
We've turned 11 in February, just gone. So yeah.
And how many clients do you have, and what kind of client segment bank are they?
Great question. So currently we look after about 80 to 90 families. So I don't view them as individual clients. I view them as client families, because we're very passionate about intergenerational wealth planning, succession planning amongst these. So you tend to have grandma, granddad, maybe son and daughter in the business, and children breaking through into the business. So we do a lot of sort of mentoring around that, succession planning, mindset stuff about allowing the next generation to come through. And those are skills that I developed over years to ensure that I can deliver on that. Now, I'm not a fully qualified coach. We would always bring a coach in if it needed that within the family dynamic. I'm a planner, but I'm able to have those coaching conversations with the clients to ensure that they are aware of the implications of what they're doing, and perhaps eke out of them really what business, life, and money means to them.
Now, hang on a second though. What you mean is that you get a client who might own a business and wants to see you maybe annually and looking at the financial plan in order to buy the house, buy a yacht or whatever. So why do you need to see the rest of the family? Why do you need to involve that kind of conversation?
Well, we, as I mentioned, we do a lot of intergenerational succession planning. So part of the first few questions we ask somebody is what's the money for? Why are you building all these assets, this wealth, and so forth? And what it boils down to with a lot of people, and this is almost a bit of a filter for clients as well, because some people are just the way they are. And I have a term for them, and I'm not going to share that with you because it's quite blunt. Whereas some people are doing it for love, and they're doing it for the love of their family, the next generation, and it's an expression of love. The cascade of wealth is an expression of love moving into the next generation. Some people don't want to do that, and they're not the right people for us. So we kindly say, you know what, that's not what we're about. We're not just here to help you do that. We'd much rather you have a process and a system that allows you to transfer wealth to the next generation.
I really like that term, cascade of wealth. It's really a neat way of talking about intergenerational planning, really, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. And it opens up all sorts of conversations. Then you get down the road of, well, I don't want her to have some, but I want him to have some. I don't want his wife to inherit, but her. And you get into all these family dynamics, which is fascinating. And again, it's a route to go now, because that really, really deepens and strengthens the relationships you have with those clients, because they're not having those conversations with anybody other than probably their significant other. So that then builds trust, builds bond, and you tend to find that we're not by no means a concierge, and I'll come to the sort of marketing and sort of network that I have built over many years, but you become that go-to person, not so much a fixer, like Mr. Wolf in Reservoir Dogs, so to speak, but you become a bit of a fixer. You know what, Raj, I need this sorting out. Do you know somebody that can help? I need to lease a car. I need some advice on tax planning. I need someone to help me with XYZ. And they may not use the people recommend, but we've carefully vetted people and used them ourselves over years. Why wouldn't we recommend them to our clients and further deepen that relationship and trust?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's the added value that good planners offer. You've got about 80 to 90 families. Are you not concerned that once your initial client of a particular family dies or whatever, that the people who inherit will want to go and get their own advisors?
Well, the thing is, you have them. We have a process to ensure that. I mean, there's always a risk that can happen, and as much as you can coach and educate somebody to say to them, "This is what granddad, grandma wanted to happen, or mum and dad want to happen," it's easy to say that, but it's obviously you have the estate planning trust stuff that we do with our clients as well, with a separate business that we have. And it just comes down to the conversations, the rapport you build with those individuals. And in my opinion, the earlier you have those conversations and you add value by educating the next generation, their responsibilities, guardians of the wealth for generations beyond them, that then further deepens the relationship with that individual. And they understand there's a process we take them through to ensure that they don't, you can never guarantee it, but to ensure that they're aware of the wishes of the people that the wealth is coming from are respected.
Excellent. So how many times a year do you see clients? I mean, is it a one-off planning meeting that you have on a annual basis?
I mean, there's always that, and there's always that annual forward planning meeting that we have as mandatory. Then we have a variety of meetings depending on the client's need throughout the year. There could be a tax harvesting meeting, there could be an estate planning meeting, a risk mitigation meeting. Just general conversation about the family dynamics. Has anything changed in the family? Expenditure, these things as well. They're all short meetings. You know what I mean? The formal meeting is probably about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, even quicker now with the advent of Zoom, taking off travel time and stuff. The sort of annual forward planning meetings are now 40 to 45 minutes. We always revisit some of their goals, the deeper planning stuff that we took away from the first initial meeting with them, and just make sure that they are in line with what their wishes still are and how they are on track to achieve their goals that they initially kindly shared with me in the first few discussions. So that usually forms the backbone of it. And interestingly, the cash flow modelling is really there to say, are we on track to what we need to achieve? Mm. And if we're not, what adjustments do we need to make to ensure that we can?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the conversation, although there's a regulatory requirement to go through the investment, pensions and so forth, that's just a byproduct. It's just what do we need to do? Okay, it's done that, fair enough. We don't go into a deep conversation because the clients have been coached and educated that the investment process and the models that we have our belief are absolute best of breed. So, and they've got true diversification, and the markets will do what they do. No one can predict or time them. How are you in line with your plan? Is there an opportunity with what's happening in the markets to perhaps put some more money in? Or if the investments are growing fantastically, can you achieve some of the stuff you set out earlier? Can you move some of those goals further forward? Because you've made some money, you know what I mean? And a big believer in the cascade of wealth thing is great, because it's like great people putting trust planning, estate planning, wills and things into place. But again, if you can demonstrate to somebody, you know what, why wouldn't you want to see the smile in your son or daughter's face or grandchildren's face that you've helped them pay a mortgage off early while you're still alive? Do you know what I mean? And if you can afford to do that, if you're in a fortunate position to do that, why wouldn't you do that? And those are the conversations we have. It's great hoarding this, but if you've got a 40% tax bill at the end of it, why wouldn't you do it now rather than later? Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's all the regulations and rules around ensuring that it's the right thing to do and so forth, but the high-level conversation is there. And that's a fantastic conversation to have.
But I think it's interesting. You can kind of reassure them, because truth allows you to, show and demonstrate taking a deposit and paying off the kid's mortgage or something like that without, affecting it too much. So if you didn't have that sort of reassurance, it would be a bit more difficult, I think, to convince clients to give up some of that wealth early. That's what they think.
Absolutely, but also because we charge fixed fees for what we do and fixed retainers to our clients, it's pure planning. Do you know what I mean? We're not, and again, I'm a business, of course, and the cynic in me says, if I was charging X% a year to look after somebody's money and I was encouraging to spend money, why would I do that? Because I'm giving myself a pay cut. Whereas if you're charging fixed fees and the client's getting a service, and that fee's a competitive fee that's set out in advance no matter what happens, because you're delivering a service that isn't linked to a product, it's linked to a service, then you have a fantastic relationship with somebody. Do you know what I mean? They're not, and people are on the clock. They're not on the clock saying, hang on, every time we call you, we're going to charge you something. We have a formal meeting. By the way, we've had a pay cut because the market's gone down, or we've had a pay rise because the market's gone up. We have a system that allows us to do that and retain and maintain profitability. And that's what people want. They obviously want a strong, steady, stable business.
So you don't charge any annual management charge or anything else like that? Percentage?
Well, we agree a fixed retaining with a client for what we feel is an appropriate amount of work involved for their needs.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But when we're not the cheapest, we're not the most expensive.
How about marketing? And do you need new clients? Are you looking for new clients? What's your business model looking like?
It's one of these things that's interesting. From my days in Edward Jones, I am always, I still love the chase. Don't get me wrong. It's great fun. It gives me butterflies and everything else. And I just love that. It annoys the hell out of my wife because wherever we are, I'll be trying to open a conversation with somebody about something which may not lead to investments or something, but it's just general conversation, because you never lose those skills to open conversations and have great conversations with people that may or may not become clients, but that's not the reason for the conversation. Do you know what I mean? So that's me as a person. So you never really lose that. And I struggle to say no to people. I would always try and help and point them in the right direction. If we're not the right firm for them, we have a group of businesses that we work with that I will happily refer them to, because we don't deal with that type of work. So that's me as a person. So if someone came to me with the marketing we do and they may not be the right fit, we would usually refer them on. Now, the marketing we do, again, like with a lot of businesses, when we started up in 2009, there was a joke saying that I would go to the opening of a paper bag. I'd go to any event that was there just to get my business cards out and kind of get the name of the business out, because you're a new business. Over time, you realised, obviously, got married, children came along, my priorities changed significantly. But of course, the business had gradually become different over that time as well. So I do a bit of focus stuff now. Some stuff over the years that I still have in my marketing portfolio, should we say? Yeah, I've written for national press. I've been on Channel 4 News discussing the budget. I've written for the Times, the Sunday Times, various bits and bobs going forward. Yeah.
Do they help you? Do you feel that helps you, that national exposure?
I think if someone, and I'll come to the marketing that bit in a second. It does help me. I'll come to that in a second, Sandra. Thank you for asking. But one of my biggest coups was the article that I wrote for Vanguard. Vanguard asked me to write an article on behaviour modification. Now, Vanguard are huge. Vanguard are like $6-7 trillion under management. I just looked at some stats. If you gave everybody $1,000 in the world, everyone in the world $1,000, that's how big Vanguard are. And they asked me, a small business in South Yorkshire, to write an article for them on behaviour modification, which was a huge, huge feather in my cap. So again, I don't use that to the market, but if someone says, you need to speak to Raj, if an accountant's got a client who may already have an advisor, speak to the person we recommend, here's some of his work. It's a great way to start a conversation about somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the articles I currently write for a local business magazine are there to help people start a conversation about me, as opposed to speak to Raj as a great financial advisor. Here's some of the work he's written. It may resonate with you. I read this great article that may be relevant to you at your time of life. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We don't do any of the. We are unbiased, but that's up in the air at the moment with what's going on. But we don't do anything else. I don't really see the benefit of it myself, the mass marketing, because we're not a mass market firm. So other feathers to our cap that again are great are stuff that I've done personally that I wanted to do, like help kids teenagers that have fallen through the net of the education system, help them with financial literacy skills. And I've now become a trustee of that charity. It's a great entity to be involved with, and we look after children that are 14 to 16 years old that have been marginalised, so they can't get into mainstream education for whatever reason because of the way their life has turned out. So I run sessions for them on occasion, not so much now because the centre isn't open, on financial literacy. But it's not just about money, it's about general life skills, about opportunity cost, and it's fantastic, amazing conversations you have with children that you wouldn't normally access. And my remit there is just to enlighten them about certain things. But my personal remit is, if I can, maybe there could be 10 learners in a classroom. If I can just set a light bulb off in one or two of their minds, that then allows them to have a conversation with one of their parents, perhaps, where the relationship may be a bit different, then and that can alter the dynamic of the relationship. That's a huge plus for me. Do you know what I mean? That's a huge feather in the cap that I won't usually see, but you realise sometimes that you would get a light bulb go off in the classroom. Thank you. So if you've got a learner in the room who is having a conversation with the dad about something, perhaps, and then something I've said to them in the class may have set a light bulb go off, and that means they can then have a different conversation with the dad who they may not have seen for a week because the dad's been working odd hours or the child hasn't been at home or something. Do you know what I mean? It's a huge feather in the cap. But again, the byproduct of that, and again, hand on heart, this wasn't the reason I did it, but I've been invited to Buckingham Palace and the House of Lords for my work on financial literacy, which again, from a PR perspective and a marketing perspective, further differentiates you from other advisors out there who people might be dealing with, because some of the work you do might resonate with somebody. Do you know what I mean? And as we all know, not everybody gets those opportunities. So again, it's kind of under the radar marketing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what you're saying is push yourself into areas, and acting as a mentor, actually, which is what you're doing, I think, inspiring those kids, is hugely important. And financial planning is still really not known in UK, and even though there are increasing numbers doing it as a degree, I think we still need, you're right, absolutely, at school age, to further people's knowledge about money.
Absolutely. But again, those conversations with children, learners whose English may not be their first language, to me, to convey in simple terms something that is financial jargon and gobbledygook, improves my rapport with people who I may not normally come into contact with, or to be able to have a conversation with the next generation of my clients' children. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of all changes that as well. So, but then again, that will help. So that, again, from the marketing perspective, that helps. But hand on heart, the biggest thing that I've done that has helped me significantly in business is the business breakfast meetings that I do on a Friday morning. Done that for the last 14 years, 6:30 every Friday morning, religiously, for the last 14 years. Apart from when I'm away, then somebody else stands in for me. It's BNI, Business Networking International. We spoke about that briefly, and that just suits me as a person. Do you know what I mean? It's great. I love opening doors for people. There's no money changes handled in BNI. It's just genuinely opening doors for people that you know, like, and trust. And that know, like, and trust happens over time, because you get to learn about their businesses, how they do, what they do, and so forth. So during lockdown, since March, that business, that group of people around the world, and in the UK, in Yorkshire, in Sheffield, has boomed. Do you know what I mean? You've got 25, 30 people meeting weekly to talk about business, open doors for each other, and nothing other than wanting to help a fellow human being, which you don't usually get. So if you're an advisor who's used to working in an office and you are struggling to get work because you're not seeing people that you usually see, there's a fantastic medium there that's available to people, if you can get into a group, to help you, A, to develop your own skills anyway, but also to work with business people that you may not usually come into contact with daily, who are still meeting regularly in the morning, in the afternoon, or a lunchtime, whatever, or an evening, to connect with, but genuinely to open doors. Now, I wrote some stats down, and it's not the big I am or anything else. It's more just to say what's been happening in lockdown, just for me personally. And I've been in the group 14 years, and people think, well, how you've been in there so long, how can you still continue to be passionate about it? Now, last month...
I mean, aren't you bored? I mean,
no.
I'm not being funny, but 6:30 every Friday is pretty early. I mean, and it's quite regular. Don't you just say the same things each week?
No, well, I do and I don't, but I go there genuinely to open doors with the people, to learn about the businesses, and just connect with people with good people. Some could be clients, some could just be friends who are looking for something just to connect. Now, my statistics for June, so last month, which was a very quiet month for usual business, and people that are into BNI will understand this, I passed 13 referrals to the group in June. I brought 2 visitors, and the value of the business that I brought to the group was £13,000. That's not what I made. That's value of the business that I gave to the group through my referrals. Now, that's not the big I am, just saying that it takes a certain type of individual to get under the bonnet of how the system works. But if you do it with passion, and again, it's a bit marmite amongst advisors, I know that, there are rewards to be reaped, you know what I mean? And we get lots of work from it. We also give lots of work, and I've made some fantastic friends over years, and clients who have been in the group, have come through the group, and probably get about 50-60% of our new and recurring revenue as a result of being part of the organisation.
Wow. I think also
it
helps you be passionate about what you enjoy doing.
It does, but I think the byproduct of that is you are constantly sharpening the axe week in, week out. You are presenting week in, week out. So why wouldn't you want to do that continuously? So when you do come into contact with a real human being that's not on Zoom, you can have a conversation. People wouldn't struggle to have that anyway. What I'm saying is you are constantly sharpening the axe.
Yeah.
You're constantly presenting. You are constantly asked to deliver. There are metrics in there that ensure that you maintain your business momentum.
Yeah. No,
which is great.
definitely good advice, and it would be interesting to see if, you know, some of our planners take up that sort of initiative.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I mean, there are lots of other business groups out there that people will set up, gel with, and so forth. And I probably encourage people to do one, set one up themselves. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't you get 5, 10, 15, 20 people around a table, and as long as there's a structure to it, why wouldn't you want to do that? You can do it through Zoom. Everyone's open for discussion and business now, pretty much. And there's some fantastic opportunity out there.
So how do you see the future, you know, the future of your business? Are you looking to expand, or are you quite happy at the level that you're at? I mean, you're part of the business as well.
Yeah, I mean, when I first set up in 2009, I had I had 3 or 4 advisors, a number of support staff. I toyed with co-owning another investment-related business, stockbroking business, and it was great at the time. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of money coming through the doors. It was great fun, but then wife came along, and my priorities changed. And running that business, that model of the business, I felt I was becoming more of a manager rather than doing what I enjoy doing, that's seeing clients. So to answer that, that's my experience of having a business that's growing in that way, lots of advisors and everything else. In my mind, a growing business is having better, high quality clients. And over years, we've filtered out people that aren't profitable in a nice way. And the work we're bringing through the door is very high value. And it's great because over years, you position that. The breakfast meeting has helped me position that. The contacts I've built, a result of that, have come from that, have all helped me get to the point where I am. And that's the way that we're going regarding business growth, but looking after fewer but much higher value clients and families. So I'm not planning on getting 150, 200 clients. That'd be an absolute nightmare. I'd much rather have 50 very, very high quality clients, high value, high need, should we say, great family dynamic that you can work with and really get under the bonnet with and so forth, and really add value to what they're trying to do as a family.
That's brilliant. Okay, well, thanks very much, Raj, for talking